Hi class! Today what we're going to be talking about is our information processing theories. This is a bundle of different types of theories, and we won't necessarily have one person that's kind of in charge of them, like we have with other cognitive theories or social theories. But one of the things with information processing theories is we're really going to look at how a child starts to learn about the world, but how these things are actually constrained by our actual cognitive systems. So our brain, our ability to pay attention to things, our ability to learn and memorize things or have memories, for example, all of these things are part of that information processing theory. So we're really going to focus in on those cognitive systems and the other types of mental activities. So what I want you to be able to do by the end of this is to really talk about how information processing theorists really look at children's nature and how that differs from things like Piaget and from sociocultural theories. And we're going to talk about some of those basic processes that help us to understand more about information. We also want to have you be able to summarize the contributions that change how memory and learning happens over time. So how might that actually be different for children? And then we'll describe how this all helps us to understand more about social cognition. So this view of a child's nature from this information processing perspective is that cognitive development occurs continuously, and what we start to see is that there are going to be all these small little changes that occur in all different parts of the cognitive system. So in our actual brain and our way that we are understanding the world. In addition, the child is a natural problem solver. So the child is really able to take information that they have and use it to solve the next problem. So what we'll see later on is that we can even use this to understand more about social cognition. For example, that children are trying to learn how to deal in the social world. So the first thing we have to really talk about is the children's processing system. So what's going on in the brain over time through development. And how does that help us learn a little bit more? We're going to focus in on the memory system just because it's kind of a little bit easier to focus in if we kind of understand more about how memory works. So a very common analogy that we're going to use is that a child's brain is like a computer. So our computer has only a certain amount of information that can be processed at one time, right? So sometimes my computer lags when we're on Zoom because it's trying to process too many things and it just doesn't have the capacity to do that. So then it lags and it stops, right? But like children, or even like adults, right? There's only so much information that we can process at one time. In addition, the speed at which we are able to process and understand this information can also change, right? You can imagine that a 2-year-old child doesn't have the same abilities to process that information as, let's say, a 4 or a 6-year-old. And also, we have to think about what type of strategies and prior knowledge do we have, right? So it's a lot easier to teach a child multiplication tables after they already know something like addition, right? So all of that information, right, our prior knowledge, different types of strategies of actually solving problems changes over time. And basically everything gets better with age. So if we really think about a child's brain almost like a computer, we can also take this information and help us to understand basic parts of our memory.